Hi everyone, welcome to the fourth video of the series of developing an application from backend to frontend, backend with Google and frontend with Flutter. In the previous video, I was just yapping about how I wanted to manage the sessions in my application. However, I already solved that issue in my mind, and in this video, we're gonna start with the code of our first endpoint, which is the registration endpoint. I also want to change something here, and it's because I was thinking that I was checking just my mockups that I made, as I said in the first video. Go watch the first video if you want to understand more about the project and about this video, why am I doing these videos. However, in the first video I explained that these are some kind of mockups that I'm doing, but these mockups are only for me to know a reference of how I want the screens, what's the information that I want the screens to have, the screens to ask to the user, and what's the navigation that I want for the application. That's all what I want from these mockups. These mockups don't serve any design purposes. Everything regarding the design and the UX, I will take care of that when I am developing the front end with Flutter. Right now, this is only for, as I said, a base to know the screens that I want to have. So as I was checking here, I just added that the user could connect with his or her partner without creating an authorization account, which means, let's imagine that we have in the database, we have this division. There are the users table, which is like the user entity itself, and the user out table, which is the user authorization information. The user entity will be the information that we're able to share between users. However, the user out shouldn't be shared. It should be private, and it should be managed properly in order to protect the security, and that will be so. I want the user to be able to connect to the partner to create a couple without having a user out. However, look at this. The root, or what connects the user with the sessions, is the user authorization. It's kind of obvious. However, what I want to do is have sessions unlinked with the user out, and for this I will need to connect directly the sessions to the user. However, that's not what I want. I simply want to be able to have sessions without an user authorization. But for that, the approach that I'm gonna be taking is that if the user wants that, it can simply leave all these attributes as null. I mean, the backend will do it. And in this case, this isn't, let's leave it, but it isn't unique anymore. And what happens is that if at any point after the user creates its account without its user entity without an account, it can create an account for that in order to be able to have a persistence of the information and all of this stuff. A persistence that goes far more than the device that it's using. So for that, you will have to create a user authentication. And in that case, the flow will be that the session for that user is seeked, it's searched up, and then the user out vinculated to that session. In that case, we will have all the fields as null. Then those fields will be the ones that will be filled. And that's the change that I just made. Now let's start with the code for our register endpoint. So let's continue here with our code base. So let's move to handlers. Here we have the out handlers.go, and this will be part of the package handlers, and I will have a func I'll have a type out handler struct, which here it will have the dependencies depending on the services that it needs to communicate with. However, for now it will be empty new out handler. It will receive the dependencies. However, right now there's none. It will return an out handler, which is return out handler, for now empty. And then this one will have this I don't know if this is it worth it to have an interface for the handlers and a handler interface, or is it I think for now I don't want that. So we're gonna add a method to this handler, which is our handler, which it's the same method that all handlers will have, which is registered routes. And this will get a router, which will be a pointer to a chi.mux, and it doesn't return anything. It simply registers its route to the router. And what's this router? So let me explain how the flow will work. Here I will have a function I'll have a function called is API server, which is this is private function, so inject dependencies, and this will be the function. It will be called here, right here, and that's all. Is dot inject dependencies here, yeah. And now I first of all I have to inject or create repositories, then create services, and then create handlers. Why is this the order? Because that's the flow of the three layers. The handlers communicate with the services, and the services communicate with the repositories, and that's all. So then in create handlers I will have a out handlers dot new out handler, and this new out handler will be an out for traceability. I'm gonna do it that way. Out handler, it's equal to that, and then here registering routes. Oh yeah, and to register routes I need to receive the router, which is chi.mux, and then router.mount. This will mount. No, I mean all handler dot register routes, and I'll pass the router, and that's all. So here I need to pass my router, and that's the flow. And then in that handler, then I'll have something like this will be R, and I'll create a new router which will be equal to chi.mux, and then I'll mount air.mount router out router. However, I'm looking at this because all mirrors should be I think there's no problem there. So then router dot this is a post, which is register. I think this is kind of bad practice for a RESTful API, because we should have name of resources, not of actions, and register if a name of an action, not a resource. But I guess I'm gonna leave it like that. And then I have here to have a handler for that endpoint, which will be func. I'll add here comments because I like to have my files organized in a way that it's easy to read. Let's say handlers, or endpoints. Endpoint sounds better. Endpoints. So func, this will be part of edge dot out handler. Then it will be register endpoint, and this will receive a w http.response writer and an error, a pointer to http.request, and it handles that endpoint, and here I have to subscribe to that register endpoint, and that will be all. That will be a handler. Let's check if it's working fine. For that I'm gonna do write, and let's write something like hello, and that will be all. Let's check if it's working. Perfect. Let me open Thunder client, http v1 out register, and this is a post. Hello. Yeah, the endpoint is subscribed successfully, so that will be perfect. So now I need some DTOs. Since the DTOs are unique for the endpoints, because I mean a request DTO for the register endpoint won't be the same for any other endpoint, then I like to keep them in the same files and in the same packages. As we will see with the models or entities later on in the project, those I do like to have them separately. However, these I like to have them in the same file that I'm using them, because they are unique, they are private. That's why I can do something like a register DTO, and I keep it with lowercase because I don't need it to be exported for any reason. So it will receive the email, which is a string. I think it has to be public. No, we can. Email. In JSON, this will be email, same, and validate dot required. No, this isn't required. This validate email. Store email has JSON tag, but it's not exported. Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure, but I think that it has to be capitalized because it's used as a JSON. I also have password, which is also a string. JSON dot password, and that will be all. The validations regarding the length and the security, I like to keep them in my code and not in these middlewares, in these packages middlewares. I also have I think that I'm gonna later on expand this endpoint and this DTO in order to include the OAuth information. However, for this, at the moment, I'm gonna leave it like this, and later on I'm gonna expand it. Then I'm gonna create some utilities that I'm gonna use. Utils.go package utils, and this will have a function which will be write JSON. Then this will receive status will be int, and it will also receive a body which will be of type any, and the the response writer, the most important thing. TP response writer. So basically what it does is that it does dot write header dot write. I think that it is like this. Header dot its content type and its application dot JSON. And then let's add right header, which is the status code, and that will be status. And then write a JSON new encoder for W encode body, but this can return an error. So let's simply return that error and return error. Yeah, I think that will be it. Encode, yeah. So let me move back to here and let's remove this. So what do we have to do? Simply validate the body. And for JSON validation, I'm gonna use a package called validate. It's this one. Let's copy, go get, and that will also be an utility, which will be func read JSON HTTP response request, and the payload will be also an interface of type any. I mean, it's an any type. It could also be written like this. Also, I don't know the difference actually, so I'm gonna check it. What's the difference between any and interface? I mean, I know that interface it's like any type, because in Golang inherent in implementing interfaces is something that is done implicitly, not explicitly, and it is done regarding the methods that are implemented. And an empty interface is implemented by all the types, because all the types have no methods. I mean, it can be considered as empty methods types. However, I don't know what any does, so I'm gonna check. It seems that they are the same one, the same stuff. So I'm gonna change here for any, because it's more readable. So JSON will return an error. It can return an error, and it could be something like, let me check if I recall, is like validator dot I have to create the validator. Yeah, var validator validate, it's equal to validator new. Yeah, that's it. And validate dot JSON struct. It's struct, and first of all, let's check if age dot body is equal to nil, then return let's create some errors here, like I think that, yeah, const errors. No, this doesn't make sense. It's var How is it? Is it var error nobody is equal to errors new nobody provided. Yeah. Then validate struct. Let's validate that struct. And this does return an error. If error is equal to, if error is different to nil, then I think, if I remember well, here we could do something like font errors it's equal to error dot validator validation error, something like this, and this will return some kind of all the found errors, like for instance empty field of not of type, etc., etc. However, I don't need that because that's giving too much information to the client. So let's only leave it like error invalid body. That would be all. Entonces, errors dot new invalid body, and this simply will be return. Now validates expression automatically validates next extrusion. This otherwise returns for ordinary validation. You will need to assert the error if it is not need, obviously. And tell me what happens here. So let's return nil. However, I want to check if that's how I did it before. I have it on utils, utils.go. It seems that I don't have it. New. Yeah, I'm gonna add this one. Yeah, I think this shouldn't valid. So let me check an handler, for instance, all handler. And how does this validate body? It's a function called validate body? No. Shared, oh, it's part of shared, and it does check is if it's empty body. Oh, I was missing something. I was missing a very important step, the most important step, and is reading the JSON. So let's do that. It's h.json.new decoder, which receives an h.body, and it decodes it into the payload. Yeah, and this returns an error. So let's check if that error is nil or isn't it. You know what? I'm gonna very different to nil, return errors invalid body. I could combine these two if statements in a single one, but it will have a very long line. So I prefer this way. And I think that will be all for that handler. So in register endpoint, I will have utils.share read JSON, which will be read from the reader. And I don't know why I have it here as an H. It's an error. Let's put it right. Yeah, it's an error. Yeah, request. And that's all. So I passed the error, and I also passed the, let's create it. So the payload, it's equal to a register DTO, and let's pass the payload. Now read JSON if error it's different to nil, then we'll write an error to the client, and that's also an utility that I'm gonna write. So write error will receive a http.response writer. It will receive a status and it will receive an error, which has to be of type error. And this will just make use of our write JSON function that we have already created. So we'll do something like a write JSON w, then status, and then the changes that I'm gonna do something like this. Interface. No, it's not like this. It's struct error dot error, and I think it's like it's type. No, it's, so what's wrong here? It's type. It has to be a map. Yeah, I think it's that. So map of string and interface. Okay, I think it's like way, but I will change the interface for any because it's more readable, and will return whatever this returns us. So we have the JSON, write JSON, a handler. In this case, we're gonna do utils write error. The error will be HTTP status but requests, and the error will be whatever error we got. Yeah. So once we have read the DTO, so let's comment this. It's extract payload. Then we have to call service, and then write or return or respond. So that's the flow. We have already created the validation of the body. We need to continue with the call of the service, but for that we need to create a service to call, at least the interface of that service that we're gonna call later on. So I think I'm gonna create this interface, and then I'm gonna leave the video there. So for that, we're gonna move to the package folder, which, as I said in the first video, is the one that has the code that can be reusable for other projects. So our domain, it's the domain in which we're gonna be focusing right now. And we're gonna create something like yeah, I'm gonna remove this folder. It's out, and out will have an out domain.go. Yeah, No, no, I don't like it. I don't like it that way. Let me think about it. Package out. Out domain. I'm gonna check what's the convention in Go for naming packages. What's the naming convention in Go for packages? Snake case, camel case, or what is it, the other one? Pascal case. Lowercase only, single word, descriptive and concise, field names, test files. It shouldn't have underscores, it seems like. So it would be something like out domain. Yeah, I don't know if I like that pretty much. Or domain out. I think that sounds better. Domain out. And we'll also have services, service or services, service, repos. I wanna take a look of how I did it in my past project. However, this project, regarding that fact, is there it doesn't have like something that I like pretty much. Filters, models, repositories. Yeah, I get it. I think this is the way. I'm not sure if I like it or not, but I think this is the way. So let's create our types, and the types will be type out service interface, and this will have a function called register user, which receives. What does this receive? This receive the email, which is a string, and the password, which is a string, and if the user is registering, that means that we're also creating the session right there. And if we are creating the session, that means that we also need the device, the OS, the device and the OS. So I also need those two parameters. So let's move here to let's come back to our DTO, and let's add those two parameters, which is it's device and this is required validate dot require, and this is always, this is also require device require. Yeah, so I also receive those two parameters, which is device string, always string, and I do return either the refresh token and access token, refresh and access token, which means refresh token, access token, or error. Yeah, and then let's come back to our handler. Let's create that dependency that our handler has that service, which is the out service. It's of type of the interface, which is out domain, no, domain out dot I'm not sure about the convention. I don't like that naming convention, so I'm gonna Golang package naming convention. Yeah, I think that's like I have to do it. So domain out, it will have an out service, which I need to receive at my constructor out service, and then here I do call the out service. How much do I have left? I have, so let's create our age dot out service dot register user, and I'm gonna pass it the payload. So let's payload dot email, payload dot password, payload dot device, and payload dot always. This may return an error, an access token, refresh token, and an error. If error is different to nil, look, I'm gonna say this right now. I have the personal rule that the part that receives the error has to convert it in a user manner, in a user way, which means right here I receive an error from the register user, which is my method, a function that I'm gonna implement. So wherever this error comes from, whether it is a database communication, whether it is an internal error, then it's at that point of the service that it has to convert the error to an error to send to the user. And so at this point, if I receive this error, then I consider that then the error, it's ready to be sent up to the user. So if error is different to nil, then I do utils.write error, and I write, the thing is the status. I don't know what the status to add. So if the error was thrown by my own function, then it will be an internal server error. status and let's return the error. No. Oh yeah, here we have to add returns in order to finish with the execution of the function. And then if everything went fine, then we're gonna write the response to the user. In this case, we're gonna do utils.writeJSON HTTP status. In this case will be created because an out user was created, and the body will be a customized body. I don't want to create a struct for that because it will only be used right here. So let's create, I don't know, something like because I thought that, but that doesn't make sense. Let's use a map string of type any, and it has an refresh token, access token. And that's how it ends. So we will have it. So what I'm gonna do, I want, well, the camera, I don't know what happened with the camera, but I don't want to implement the service right now. However, I want to test it. So we have two options. I could write a test file, a unit test for this endpoint, which I don't want to do. I certainly don't want to do. I am one of the people that hate to test, that hate to write tests, because most of the times it takes more time than the time that it takes write the actual function. So I prefer to omit unit tests. However, in the future, I think that mainly for service business functions, I'm gonna write unit tests for that. However, for something like this, I don't want. So then what I'm gonna do is that I'm gonna write a mockup of the implementation. So let's come here, and in out, let's write a service, but that will be of the package out. It does make sense. It does make sense. Or it doesn't. Maybe up. Create service. Let's go. Package up out. This will have the type, which means out service implementation struct, and for now this won't return nothing. Func new out service. This returns and domain.out service, and this return out service MPL. And then we have the issue because we haven't implemented the function, which is outserve impml, which is register user, and this receive. I'm gonna copy paste. Pretty long. I want to check if I delete this. Yeah, it does work, because I don't want to keep those names. It's just for reference in the interface, in order to know what it's returning. However, here I don't want to have the names. It's very Flutter for me. So now here we'll simply return. Let's see, this is the access token, this is the refresh token, and there was no error. And that's it. That's how I like to test it. I know it's not a good practice, but yeah, that's the way. So create a new service. So let's out service. This will be part of where is it? It's on app out dot new service, and let's pass this here, and now everything is working. So let's check it out. It says working, so I need my Thunder client, new request, it's a post, it's not here in register, so body, let's send nobody, invalid body, it should say nobody. I think that here we will say invalid body. It should be nobody, not invalid body. Let me check that. Invalid body, error invalid body, error nobody. I guess it will only, that's how it's managed. Well, it's invalid because there's nobody. So let's continue with testing. So let's say email dot. However, what's required is the device and the OS. So I'm gonna add those two. Let's say Samsung, and we have an OS which is Android. In this case, invalid body. Let me check that. utils.go. Where's my handler? Required. Yeah. The email is not required. It shouldn't be required. Yeah, let me check what's going on. Invalid character after value pair. Oh. Non-pointer handlers. Yeah, I get it now. I do get it. I have to pass the pointer, the reference, and I didn't do it. So I have the payload and I have to pass the reference to the payload. That's the issue. Yeah, now it works. I get the access and the refresh token. So let's imagine that I don't pass the email, which isn't required. Well, it seems that it's taking it as required. I guess because I have the required of that it's an email. So I may remove that. Well, let's leave it like this. Now let's check what happens if we return an error. So for instance, errors new. I mean now it's lowercase to create the user. Let's check again. Yeah, I'm getting the error. So yeah, now we have created the transport layer of our register endpoint. It's pretty easy, pretty basic. And in the next video, I'm gonna be implementing the service and the repository layers, which are the ones that are most important because are the ones with the logic. That will be everything for this video. Thank you for watching.